configuration, which includes the configuration tools that you see at the top of the browser. So Manage, Shortcuts, and then your username, and then all of the options that you see under Manage: Content, Structure, Appearance, Extend, Configuration, People Reports, and Help, which is a very nice one. This chapter will also tell you how to set Drupal to find a file system so that you can upload things like images and documents to your website. In this lesson, we're going to cover site information, which includes things like your site name, slogan, the system email address, and your settings for front page and access denied and page not found pages. To access site information, we're going to go under the Manage tab right here, and then we're going to head over to Configuration. In the system box on the right-hand side, the first option is Site Information. We set some of this information up when we installed Drupal, but now we're going to go ahead and expand this a little bit further. So under Site Details, we have the site name, which is correct. We could change it here if we wanted to. We also have the site email address. So this is the origin email address for any communication that needs to be sent out from the site, such as a password reset or some other notification. We may want to add a slogan, and in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do so. We also have the ability to change the URL to which the front page points. So this means that when somebody comes to your website, they type in your top-level domain, tastycakesforall.com, they're going to get a page. That page will be your home page or front page. And that, just like any other page on your site, actually has its own node or URL. This allows you to set what that points to. We're going to leave this alone because that's a more advanced setting that we're going to cover much later on. But in this particular lesson, we're also going to go over the next option, which is error pages. Those settings include the default 403 page and the default 404 page. The help text here is very useful. It explains what these are. But a default 403 access denied page is the page that the user is going to see if they land on a page for which they don't have permission to view the content. So a 403 error in the web world is an access denied or permissions denied error. The 404 page, the page not found, means that the URL that you went to does not have a destination. There's nothing there at that path. So the page that you access here tells you the content that you were looking for is not where you were searching for it. And it might be very helpful to give the user some kind of tool to look for the content that they're trying to find. You've probably been on a site before where you've accidentally landed on a page that you shouldn't have been visiting. Or perhaps you've tried to find a page that no longer existed. And the site may have given you something fun or cheeky like a Yeti saying, hey, you don't really belong here. Maybe you want to go to that other page. And having that on your site gives the user a sense that the site maintainers care about the users. So if the user is lost, the site maintainers are trying to help them. Or if the user is trying to get into pages where they shouldn't be, the site maintainers are trying to guide them back to where they should be. It's much friendlier than having something that says, access denied, go away, or something like that. So this is a very good tool to use to really help your brand and make your site feel friendly. In order to direct the user to these pages, we need to create the ones that we want here. We're going to go ahead and save the site information configuration here and create an error 403 page, an access denied page, and then come back to this. If I go home now, I'll now see the slogan that I added right under the site title. Okay, so we're going to add a piece of content. We're going to add a basic page that will not go into the menu system that can be used for the error 403 page. And I'll try to make this a fun message. The other thing that I'm going to do on this page is set the URL path settings. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and expand that tab and give it a path that makes sense. In this particular case, this is the page that is intended for the error 403. So I'm going to use 403 as my path. And I'll go ahead and save and publish. I got an error message here saying that the alias is already in use. This is because I went through this process before recording the video, and so I had created this page, and even though I deleted the page, the alias that I just tried to create, which is the URL path, already existed. So I have a couple of options. I can go ahead and clean up the alias, which is more advanced settings, so we'll save that for another lesson. Or I can go back to my URL path settings and set it to something slightly different. So I'm going to set it to error 403. Okay, now I have a page that says, sorry, this isn't for you. And I can use this particular page in the configuration settings for the error 403 page. So we're going to go ahead and go back to site information and set that. Configuration, system, site information. I'm going to scroll down here, and I have the two settings, the 403 page and the 404 page not found. So for the error 403, I'm going to use the page that I just created. For the 404 page not found page, I'm actually going to direct the user to the default out-of-the-box system search in a Drupal site. I happen to know that URL, so I'm going to add it here. It's search/node. This way, if a page is not found, then the user is automatically directed to the search field. And I'll go ahead and save this. Okay, so now we're going to see how this behavior actually works by going to a page that we know doesn't exist. So I'm going to go up to the URL here and change it to something that I know I haven't created, monkey. And it automatically takes me to the search page, which is very helpful. Okay, so how does the 403, the access denied, work? At this time, by default, Drupal out of the box, the search functionality, which you currently see in a little box in the left sidebar, is not available to the unauthenticated user. The general public, basically, does not have permission to use search functionality on this site. So if I go to a browser where I'm not authenticated, I'm going to switch over to Safari, you'll notice that there is no search box in the left sidebar. Since going to a page that you can also use this area to update modules if there are security updates, and to uninstall modules that you have decided that you're not going to use. Moving on to configuration, this is where you're going to set up the overarching settings for your Drupal site, such as your site title, but essentially blocks are chunks of content or information or embedded code on your site that are separate from the content itself. And going back, comment types allow you to change the comment forms. You can actually have comment forms that, say, require an image or that ask the user for a very specific type of information or perhaps give them multiple choice. So this is where you'll access that. Contact forms are where you can set up specific forms that can be used to contact someone through your site. For example, you might have a book our services form on your site, and you might use contact form to do that. And this is where you might create new content types, which we will definitely be doing for this site. We will spend a lot of time here because this is a very important tool for customizing your Drupal site and really making it do what you need it to do. The types of content that we're going to be adding include recipes, which are going to have meal type and ingredients fields. We're also going to be adding events, which are going to have date and location fields. Display modes. This is an incredibly powerful element of your structure options in your configuration because this gives you the ability to set up how your content will display and to create different displays for different purposes. So we're also going to be spending a lot of time in here in customizing the look of your site and how the content is provided to the user. Scrolling down here, menus are very important. This is your site's navigation. This is also where we can add links and change the order of items in our menus. Taxonomy is another important element of your Drupal site and of customization, and we're going to be spending a lot of time here as well. This is a tool for categorization of content, and it's very useful for setting up searching, for optimizing for search engines, and for creating a navigation system for your site that makes a lot of sense to users, making it easy for them to find the information that they're looking for. The final option here is views. This is another area that we are going to be spending a lot of time in this course, because views are the heart of how your content gets displayed on your site. Views are queries that list out content based on very specific parameters, and these are really important for making your content easy to find and providing a logical structure for your site. So the structure section of your site in general is an area that you are going to spend a lot of time. Moving on to appearance. Appearance is where you manage what Drupal calls themes. Other content management systems might refer to themes as skins or designs. This is the visual component of your site. This is what your site looks like, the colors, the fonts. This also controls some aspects of layout. So if we take a look here under List, we'll see the default themes available to out-of-the-box Drupal, including the one that we've been looking at so far that has the nice blue bar at the top and the pretty tabs. And if I scroll down, you'll also see what we look at when we're seeing the administrative pages. If I keep going, you'll see some uninstalled themes or one uninstalled theme. And you'll notice from the screenshot that it looks very different. It's very bare bones. This is where you're going to control contributed themes that you've installed or custom themes that you have created and added to your site yourself. It's important to remember that the appearance of your site, the theme, is something that is typically very important to clients because it's what the end user sees, and it's something that a client can really understand. Clients will understand and love selecting fonts and colors. At the end of the day, however, this is one of the easiest things to switch. So the configuration, the structure, the content structure of your site, the way that the views are set up, all of this is the foundation upon which your Drupal site is built and how your content is given to the users. And the theme, if you're thinking in terms of a house, it's just the paint and maybe a couple of frills along the edges, maybe your baseboards, the things that make it look nice, the paintings, the things that make it look like a home. So scrolling back up here to the options that we have available, there's a Settings tab under Appearance. This controls the display of some of the key elements in your theme that will actually be part of any theme that you set up, which includes the logo and the site name and some other options that we will be going into when we do the lesson specifically on theming. Moving on to Extend. This is where you're going to add new modules or enable modules that are part of core but disabled in the default out-of-the-box installation. You can also use this area to update modules if there are security updates and to uninstall modules that you have decided that you're not going to use. Moving on to configuration. This is where you're going to set up the overarching settings for your Drupal site, such as your site title, or the caching settings on your site, such as performance settings. This is also where you're going to set up your file system settings and the text formats that are available to your content editors. Moving on to people, not only is this where you're going to manage the users that have access to your site, it's also where you're going to set permissions for what those users can do, and you're going to set up user roles. Permission settings are set up based on the user roles, and then individual users are assigned user roles so that they can have access to the permissions designed for that specific role. And we will go over this in a lesson as well. The Reports tab is very helpful because it gives you access to status reports on your site, including updates that might be available or log messages. If you're seeing a lot of issues with your site, You might look at the log messages to help you identify where those issues are coming from so that you can fix them. The Help tab is a fun one because it gives you access to a lot of documentation. This documentation is created by the community and is a great place for you to get started as a community contributor, because as you're working on your Drupal site, you might find that some documentation isn't quite as helpful as you need it to be, and you on your own might figure out the solution to something that might be missing. And when that happens, you can then go back into the documentation yourself and update that documentation so that it can be more helpful to the next person who comes along and has the same experience that you might have had. Looking at the next option in the black bar, Shortcuts. This gives you quick access to sections of the Manage area that you might want to spend a lot of time in. So by default, there's Add Content and All Content, because presumably you're going to be spending a lot of time with your content. You can manage the shortcuts yourself, and we're going to take a look at that in another lesson. The next tab, TC4A, is your user account, and it'll have your username next to the user icon. This gives you the ability to view your user profile, edit your user profile, and log out. So this is a really handy section for you and your site if your site has a community aspect and user profiles are important. But it also makes it easy for you to edit your password, which is obviously very important. You want